Many eras ended in the 2024 season for the New York Jets, and potentially many more might end in the 2025 offseason. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we're going to break down the Jets' 2025 offseason, what you might expect happen here with the free agency moves and draft picks as we break down the video. But before we get into that, if you like the content that Ryan and I put out, and you want to help see the Tracy Take channel grow, easiest way to help out is by subscribing to the channel, tackling that bell to get notified when new videos come out. While you're at it, leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to see the Jets do in the 2025 offseason. And Ryan, let's pick it up here. Tough season overall for the Jets. I mean, you want to talk about turmoil. It's just Robert Saleh got fired very early on. Then a couple weeks later, the new GM, not the new GM, the GM got fired as well. Then and I think it was right after they traded for Davante Adams.
Yeah, it
Also,
was, I think, a couple
and
weeks later.
and then that obviously did not provide enough explosion moving on forward, to try and make that playoff push. And then the biggest thing then too is I know you kind of look at those yards here as well for the defensive side of the ball. The defense did have good performances, but definitely was lacking, I think, the organization. It felt, once when Robert Saleh left, just when it come to game planning, the
Yeah.
preparation, and everything. And so it was just kind of just a turmoil of a mess of a season. They're going to be finding a new head coach, a new GM, and biggest thing then too is then when it comes to that is like what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers, what's going to happen with Davante Adams. Well, Davante Adams one is pretty easy. We'll get that we'll get into that here in a second. But Ryan, I want to throw it over to you. Just quick thoughts on the
Yeah.
Jets 2024 season. You see the season team stats up here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't in the least, as a Patriots fan, I do not mean this in a rude way, even though it probably will come across that way. But like, I always joke that like the Jets will jet, and like to me, that's just exactly what happened. They had all the talent in the world, and like it still just wasn't able to come together this year. They had actually, and I'm a little shocked after seeing these numbers, but they actually had like a league average passing offense, which I thought it would have been lower than that. But the rushing attack, it was very poor, especially when you have running backs like Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, which I think just speaks to the offensive line that really struggled. Pass protection did improve though, in like their 15th in sacks with only 40 sacks allowed, and they were 12th in turnovers, only having 19 on the year, which isn't bad. So it wasn't all bad for the Jets, but I think when you compare like one, the expectation to the outcome, but then just like how much money and hype like went into this team, it was just uh the organization just kind of fell flat on its face, and now they're restarting from here. And frankly, this is one of the biggest question marks I think coming into this offseason. Like, where do they go from here? They're picking at 7 in the draft, so they're definitely going to be out of that quarterback range. The other quarterbacks are not going to be are not going to be really within range until at least round 2, maybe round 3, for them to get a developmental guy, and this just isn't a great draft class as a whole. Um, what style coach do they go? Do they want to go with a more defensive minded head coach? They want to go with a young offensive guru. There's just a lot of questions surrounding the Jets organization right now about where they go next. And honestly, the biggest question is their free agents, and a couple of guys that are not listed on here are Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, because those are two of the biggest question marks in terms of personnel that they have going into the 2025 offseason. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be the quarterback for them in 2022 or not, or in 2025 or not? And is Davante Adams coming back? And those answers are probably one and the same.
Yes, and I think those are going to be probably like the first three decisions that well, I guess four. I was including head coach and GM all as one. I think they're going to find a head coach and a GM. Then they're going to decide on what to do with Aaron Rodgers, and how they want to go that route. Do they trade him? Do they just cut him outright? Do they, if they cut him with a post June 1st designation, I'm pretty sure they save
Yeah.
about $9 million in cap, but they'll kind of go back and forth on that. The big one is going to be Davante Adams. Well, it's not the big one. I said the big cap savings would be Davante Adams, which I think if they cut him, they save like 30 million in cap space, and that's huge too because the Jets are, as of this recording, Wednesday the 8th, they're sitting at just shy of like $30 million according to Over the Cap. So that right there, they would double their cap space. And I think one thing that's just interesting too is you just kind of look at this Jets season and it's like kind of what if. But if I'm reading this correctly, they had 6 one-score losses. Aaron Rodgers threw for just shy of 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. I mean, 11 picks is kind of high for him in general when you go look at his overall career stats. But it's still not atrocious. Uh, I think in general, the passing game you said statistically was league average. They had some pretty poor games, but then they had like some really good games. 4 of their last 5 games, Rodgers threw for over 250 yards. The one game he didn't was the blowout loss to Buffalo, and nobody was really expecting them to win that one. But I, I think this passing offense really started to pick up. The offensive line started to play better. Olu Fushanu, when he kicked in at left tackle, that was a big boost overall to this offense. The one area, though, is I think they just became one dimensional, and that's what I think is really sad when you kind of go look at all the things of like what could have been. You got a great running back room with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, and yet they're 31st in rushing yards per game, and that's where I think it's like speaks more to kind of their consistent issues overall on the offensive side of the ball was that offensive line.
Yeah.
And like they found something out with Olu, and they've have some other good young talent there, but just did not take the steps forward overall this
Yeah.
year that they would take. And so when you look at all that, and then defensively too, when you look at their free agents, they got some key guys that are going to be free agents like DJ Reed, Javon Kinlaw, Isaiah Oliver. You know, a lot of guys in the secondary, just in general. I know Hassan Reddick, Solomon Thomas, just more edge rushers. And like they got a stud in the middle in Quinnen Williams, but who are you going to put around him? Who's going to go across from Sauce Gardner? Do you want to keep DJ Reed? And those are going to be like all the decisions that they're going to make. And when Robert Saleh was there, like they had one of the top defense, still statistically had one of the top defenses throughout the year, but it
Yeah.
just felt very kind of inorganic and artificial defensively in the second half of that season.
They were one of those defenses in the second half of that season that they played really competitive against like average to below average offenses. But then when push came to shove against like some of the better teams, like look at the Buffalo game, like they could not stop Buffalo for their lives. And
Yeah,
some of
but
that
their
was
Bills are more than just above average though when it comes to
no,
offense.
and I agree with that. But like they could not have stopped Buffalo like to save their lives that day. And I will also say they had a lot of injuries. The Hassan Reddick contract situation didn't help either. So there was definitely other circumstances too to why this defense wasn't quite up to par. But it just didn't quite perform as well this year. It's not necessarily a matter of why, but it's a results based business. So, kind of
Yeah.
getting into team needs, we talked about this at length already. Head coach, where's the quarterback position going to be? If Aaron Rodgers does come back, you still need to invest in the future at that position specifically. Secondary, do you bring back DJ Reed? Do you go to the draft to try to find another guy? Offensive line, this is a need. This is the first time as a Patriots fan that I have looked at the Jets offensive line and been like, if everybody can stay healthy, this is a really solid group. With the Olu Fashanu pick, I think that rounds it out. More if Morgan Moses comes back at right tackle, that's a solid enough group that I think just needs more continuity and maybe a different offensive philosophy to bring that running game alive. Linebacker CJ Mosley is getting older. Wide receiver 2, outside of Garrett Wilson, if which one we haven't even touched on Garrett Wilson saying that if Rodgers comes back, he's going to request a trade. But if Aaron Rodgers does not come back, Davante Adams will not be there as well, and so I think that could be an interesting spot where if the Jets get an opportunity to snag a Tet McMillan or a Luther Burden, they could. And then also tight end. This is a pretty good tight end class. I expect them to dip in there at some point in this class because the Jets do need a more consistent tight end.
Yeah, well, and it just kind of goes back to that, like overall weapons as a whole. And
Yeah.
I think that's something with their 7th overall pick. And as we kind of move on to some other next slide here with some guys they can go and get, but like 7th overall pick, I don't think they'll go tight end there. But 42nd is a real shot. This is a pretty good tight end class here. They have the Lions 3rd overall pick, and they got another pick at 109. So 4 picks in the top 110. I think one of those absolutely will be a tight end with one of these positions here, and potentially even a receiver as well, as you mentioned
Mhm.
with Ted McMillan being one of the big guys that they could potentially get number 7.
Yeah,
Other
and
guys
that
they
would
could
be a
go
great compliment with Garrett Wilson too. Tat McMillan, Garrett Wilson, that'd be a really good duo.
absolutely. And so, and other guys they can go and get if they don't want to go the receiver route. Will Campbell still just like keep beefing up that offensive line. And I know, like looking at PFF, it's like they say statistically, like a lot of guys on that offensive line actually like were graded well comparative to the position that they're in. But there's maybe they improved as the season went on. But I guess at that point it was too little, too late. But that was definitely one of their issues in the beginning of the season. So I
Yeah,
think still just getting a guy like Will Campbell and that talent helping out. They want to address the defensive line as Javon Kinlaw is in free agency. Getting a guy like Mason Graham, put him next to Quinnen Williams. I think a lot of people on the internet and in our YouTube world have really like come to like that idea. Like that would just be one of the scariest defensive interiors. I think that team's
yeah,
good, but could go up against. And Will Johnson to replace DJ Reed if they end up moving on from him. So I think
that would be an
those guys.
upgrade. That would be a
Yeah,
replacement.
yeah. I think those guys too. Then like all the day 2 quarterbacks that you were talking about as well just a second ago. I think are very much in play for development for the New York Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is gonna if Aaron Rodgers comes back, that's gonna have to be the route that they go. With Will Campbell, I definitely think if you get the opportunity to draft an offensive lineman that high, I think you take it, especially one with Will Campbell's leadership qualities. He would bring that mentality shift on that offensive line that I think the Jets would need to really get this run game back to average or if not even above average. And so I think that would be a really good pick there. That is also going back to last year. Olufashanu's big gripe was that he was really good in pass protection, but he was not a great run blocker. He just lacked like a lot of physicality and that killer mentality that you want in a like in run blocking. And so right now the Jets offensive line kind of does project that as there as well. So getting a guy like Will Campbell would be a really solid pick. And then we had Jahad Campbell, as green dot CJ Mosley replacement there as well on day 2. I think that would be a really good fit as well. So
Yeah. Hmm.
all in all for the Jets, I mean, they are kind of in limbo. The Aaron Rodgers decision is kind of holding this team hostage on what they can go do, especially at that quarterback position. But I will say also with the 7th overall pick, this is not a quarterback heavy draft. I don't think that they're going to be investing in a young talent high anyways, and they need to get a developmental guy for the future. So all in all, I think the Jets, they have a brighter future ahead, but I am very curious to see kind of where they go.
Well, it's all going to depend because it's like I saw it's interesting too. Like they completed interviews with Lewis Riddick for the GM spot, and also did an interview with Rex Ryan
Yeah.
as well. And Rex Ryan said like if he's hired, like I would end the Aaron Rodgers fiasco. Like so, I took that as like he's going to cut him
Yeah.
and move on from him. And so that's where I don't think really with where they're at right now, I don't think they're in limbo with Aaron Rodgers because the new regime is going to come in and they're going to make a decision that is unrelated to what Aaron Rodgers' decision is going to be. So I think whenever they find the new head coach, new GM, Rodgers could be wherever he's at, and then they're just gonna be like, no, we're going to move on, or we're going to trade you, or we want you to be here. We've decided like if you want to be here, we want you to be the quarterback for 2025, and we are going to get a successor. Like there's going to be a plan in place, like and they're going to
Yeah.
let him know about the plan. But I think they're not going to really include like tell Rodgers what the plan is or what he thinks of this plan. I think they're going to do what they think is best for the organization, and that includes also Davante Adams, who we mentioned. Which to me, I'm kind of assuming he's going to be cut. I mean, that's just too much money
Yeah.
that you can save up on the cap space to to not keep him.
Mhm.
And with Garrett Wilson too, threatening a trade or threatening to request a trade, a lot of guys do that. I don't know if it would actually happen. I don't think they actually would because Garrett Wilson's that good. I think they'd make it work. But that being said, though, it's be like let's try and get somebody in here um, with a little more longevity that can produce the same that Rodgers did last year. But that's the and my final thought too with the quarterbacks is I don't really know where else to go from. I mean, like everybody's saying Sam Darnold, but you could try and bring in Justin Fields. But is Justin
Sam
Fields
Darnold's
really
not
going?
going back to the Jets.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. But for guys like would Justin Fields really do better than what Aaron Rodgers did this year if you just look at the stats overall. I don't know if he would do any better. And then I'm trying to think of other guys as well: Jimmy Garoppolo, Drew Lock, Mac Jones. It's like I just look at the options for the Jets, and I feel like they're almost kind of pigeonholed to just stick with Rodgers, get a second round QB and like Garson Beck and Quinn Ewers, and then just move forward from there and just kind of see what happens, and develop this guy or maybe make a trade but I just think considering the situation, the setup, who else would do better in the situation,
No,
as right now?
well, really, nobody. And I think that's the issue. Is like this is just not. And it's not that this isn't a conducive situation because you actually look, they have a decent pass blocking offensive line. You're going to keep that quarterback upright for the most part. You have a good wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. This defense in and of itself is pretty good. So you're not asking this quarterback to come in and do a whole lot. It's just the options right now are not that great. You have I believe a 42, 43-year-old Aaron Rodgers. You could trade for a Kirk Cousins who's coming off the worst year of his career. You could go get a reclamation project in a Justin Fields. Sam Darnold is not coming back there.
Yeah.
Like Jameis Winston is a gunslinger, so he might make those games entertaining, but might be for the wrong reason. So there's just not somebody to come in and fill that need for the Jets right now. That
Oh, I'm trying to think of all the other backups that like Gardner Minshew, Carson Wentz, Malik Willis. I think Carson Wentz would be interesting. Uh, but then at the same time though too, it's gonna be fascinating to see what this new head coach, the new GM do. What we're
yeah,
gonna know a lot about like
th-
those decisions.
this
Once we know who they hire.
this may also just be one of those situations where like you get Tyrod Taylor and another cheap veteran in free agency, like Tyrod Taylor, Jacoby Brissett, and just be like, all right, we're gonna roll with these two guys this year. We're gonna eat it this season, try to build the best team that we can, and then 2026, Nico Iamaleava is a New York Jet. Like that honestly might be
The route.
the route that they not just like want to go, but are kind of forced to take just with their draft position this week quarterback class in 2025. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. This is definitely, and also as a Patriots fan, I'm going to keep a close eye on what the Jets are doing, but this is definitely one of the most intriguing situations, I think, this offseason.
Yeah. I agree with
So
that.
let's go ahead and wrap it up there on that note. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you want to see the Jets do in 2025. What head coach do you want them to hire? What quarterback do you want to see under center in 2025? And other than that, we will see you guys next time.